I have got multiple small projects planned for the 8N this morning. First thing we're going to work on is this seat. Got a flip seat assembly, suspension seat. This is off a later model tractor. I've seen replacement parts for them, and I'm not sure what it is, but the issue here is the little torsion deals are totally rotted and blown out. So we're going to take this whole assembly off, and I picked up a regular U-shaped spring from Steiner, and we're going to see if we can mount that on there and put the other seat on it. First thing, take off this whole assembly, get it out of here. Looks like it has one nut that holds it down, and then a alignment stud in the back, unless that's a broken off bolt back there. We'll find out in a second. Anyway, it definitely looks like somebody has made this into just an alignment stud, but it's got threads on it. So it was probably supposed to be a bolt, and the way that new seat hooks up, or the way the new spring hooks up, I'd like a bolt in both places. So try to get that out. Right now, need to get the air hose and a scrub brush and clean all this mess up as good as possible. One other thing that I've noticed on this tractor, and this has been this way since Dad got the tractor, is this housing is cracked right along there. I know he had to have one of these arms replaced at one time. Nah, it would have been this one over here because it's a different color. But that housing is cracked and never has caused any issues. I'll just keep an eye on it, see if I can't find a new housing somewhere. Another thing I need to do is that lift arm there is bowed. He's got it in a bind at one time, so I'll pull that off, see if I can't straighten that out in the press. All right, now get the seat area cleaned up. Got a video on my channel using one of these needle scalers that I picked up at Harbor Freight. Works really good on the engine block that I bought it for. Also works really good on this old tractor. That hole apparently goes all the way through. Who knew? Well, let's see how hard it's going to be to get this old stud out of here. Oh, you kidding me? That never happens. Yeah, I love this old tractor. The new spring is on. Oh, and those were studs. Now they're bolts. That's all I had. Next up, gotta get this seat off of there. So I gotta get that pin out first. And it'll be bolted on the bottom, so I may cut those spot welds, take that bracket off. Because unless somebody comments that they want this seat assembly, that's probably going to go to the recycle bin. That has come out nicely. I did manage to get the bracket off the back, which was probably a good thing I took it off, because since it was just spot welded on, there was a lot of rust underneath from water. So I've got a little bit of repair work to do. But next time I've got the TIG out, I'll fix that all up and paint it. I ended up having to make some round holes square for the carriage bolts, since that's not the right seat to go on there. Yeah, because I didn't want to use regular bolts. I could see me coming in like Bo Duke and land on that seat and end up with a multi-piece tailbone. But yeah, it looks good, fits good. Now, let's see if it's comfortable. Oh yeah, I like it. I don't even remember if that other one was ever comfortable because it's been broke so long. I assume it was at some point. This is much better. Like I said, I cut that bracket off. I've got this tractor's messing with me because everything I usually work on, light is better. Cars, planes, bikes. If it's something that's unnecessary, you take it off to make it lighter, but tractor's supposed to be heavy to start with, so it's really messing with my brain. The carriage bolts, I didn't have any carriage bolts, and this of course is a little one-horse town, no place to get anything on the Sunday, but I did remember that I had ordered some carriage bolts to mount the radiator down. So I just use those instead. Mama didn't raise no dummies. I got that way on my own. Now, I need to take it for a cruise, get it warmed up so I can change the oil. I'm sure some of you have noticed that when I'm cruising around, my little hood deal is just flapping in the breeze. Well, that's because the little lever is rusted off and gone, and it never had worked right, so. Sometimes I even amaze myself. At least it's not flapping until I can fix it right. And while I've got you here looking under the hood, I don't want you to miss out on one of my more technical improvements. Nasty. Shiny. That is all. Okay, time for the oil change. I cruised around town for a little bit, grinning like an idiot because I was having a good time. Fast motorcycle somewhere. Now, I cruised around town grinning like an idiot because I was having a good time. But to get the oil hot now, we need to change it. I can personally guarantee that this oil has been changed at least once, maybe twice in the last quarter century. So hopefully it doesn't look too awful. This big plug on the bottom is your drain. It's got a square head on it, a 1-inch wrench. We'll slide on there. Unscrew it. Remember, glove up. I've heard that used motor oil is bad for you. It's amazing I'm still alive. That's a big hole, so there's going to be a lot of oil come out. And this should have a screen on the inside of the plug that keeps the majority of the chunks away from the oil pickup. And that oil surprisingly doesn't look too bad. But without a head gasket leak or something like that, there's no reason it should look bad. And of course the wind's frickin' blowing. I know if I dump that, I'm going to wear half of it. I'm just going to let it go like that till it gets all drained down. While that's continuing to drain, let's take a look at the filtering system. Okay, bear with me a second here. If you're real familiar with these tractors, you know all this, but I'm going to go through this oil system for people that don't know. But this oil system on this thing is a lot different than a more modern system where you have like, well, number one, this is your oil filter. You're used to a modern car, you're used to a filter that just spins on. These use a canister style. This will fit down inside that bucket there. Screw the lid on with a gasket and you've got your filter. So that's the first difference. Second difference, and this one's pretty important, is that on a modern car, your oil filter filters all of the oil. As it comes out of the pump, it goes through a filter and then goes to the engine. This older style is what they call a bypass system. Only a small amount of the oil as the engine's running is getting filtered. And what you've got is a line coming in here. That comes off the block. There's a, well, let me go over there and check. There's an oil line fitting right here that is tapped into the oil galley in the engine. So most of your oil is going to your valve train, your crank and rod bearings, everything that needs lubricated inside the engine. Some of it, though, is pumped out through here. This line here goes up to provide a pressure reading for your oil gauge. The other line goes out here and goes to the oil filter. And from there, the oil is filtered, comes out a line on the other side of the canister, and then comes over here and is fed back into the engine through the governor housing. And like I said, being a bypass system, it only filters part of the oil. And it's worked for a long time, so not going to worry about that. One thing some people do is change this. Instead of using this canister, they'll use an adapter plate and use a spin-on filter. And there's really nothing wrong with the canister filters at all. They work fine. It's a nice filter. But if you wanted to, I guess, make it a little more modern, a little easier to change, because you don't have to worry about pulling it up out of that canister and getting oil everywhere, they make an adapter plate that bolts on and uses the spin-on filter. The only problem I've seen with them is the ones I've seen bolt on to where the filter sticks out this way. So when you unscrew it, you're still going to have oil going right down the side of the engine. So I think if I build one, which I'm thinking I'm going to build one, is mount it horizontal to where the filter screws up from the bottom. And there may be some out there like that already. It's just the one I've seen was mounted sideways. So then you unscrew it, you'll have very little oil leak out because, you know, the filter will stay upright. And it's real easy to do because the way the lines are, you can just make new lines, which I need to do that anyway. Even if I kept this, I'd build some new lines. So that'll probably be a future project. Just a block of aluminum. You have to have a center fitting that'll screw into the filter, and then a hole tapped on the side to bring oil into the outside edge of the filter, and then a hole coming out of the center to go back to the motor, back over to the governor housing. So it'd be real easy to build. All right, let's go back down below and check, see if it's drained. Okay, she stopped dripping. We'll pull that on down. And there's your screen assembly. And that fits up. And that's nice. There's no chunks, no anything on that screen. That looks nice. And your pickup tube is in the center here, up in the hole. That way that the oil that goes to the pump has at least had any big chunks filtered out of it. Well, let's dig around here. Oh my. I really figured there'd probably be a ½ inch of sludge in the bottom of this pan, but it is clean. I have taken apart modern engines that were way nastier than that. Look at that, nothing. Oh, we're good. All I need to do now on this is I'll clean this up. There's a little paper gasket goes in that groove. There, it's popping up. You can see it. I've got a new one of them. We'll put that back in there. We can change the filter and be ready to fill it up with oil. There, we got a new gasket on there. Brush just a little bit of non-hardening sealant on the gasket. Just make sure I don't have any drips. I'm ready to screw that back up in there. Now we're on to the filter assembly. A 7/8 inch wrench. Fits the bolt on the top. Undo that. Did a little pop. The lid has a spring assembly. And that exposes your filter. There's your O-ring to seal the lid. And if you've got a good filter, it will have a handle on it to help you pull it up out of there. Some of the others do not. Pull that up. just enough room to get it past your sediment bowl there. We'll just bring that down, set it into the drain pan. And that leaves about that much oil in the container. So if you want to get that last bit of oil out of there, a suction gun should do the trick. Put that down in the very bottom. Finish pulling her out of there. Okay, we're ready to install the new filter. Lubed up both sealing rings with a little clean oil. Carefully slide it onto that center post. Now push her till she's all the way down. Now we can clean up the lid here. It doesn't need much. Fit the new seal in the lid. Or put the new seal on top there. Yeah, just make sure it's on the top. Feels good. And screw your bolt in. Alright. Now we're ready to put some oil in. Okay, your oil fill hole is this deal right here. It pulls out. Got a hole going into the crankcase. This is also a breather assembly. So we'll take it apart, clean everything up on it before we reinstall it. There's another one like this on the other side that lets it cross-ventilate the engine. But this is where you fill it up with oil. There's the parts inside your breather. Just a wing nut on top. This piece comes off. That leaves you with a cleanable filter element here. And then the base. So we'll throw all these in the parts washer, get them looking nice before we put it back on. And that'll all be good. Okay, while that breather cap's cleaning, go ahead and get her loaded up with oil. Oil capacity on these girls is 6 quarts. We're going to load it up with quality 1540 Rotella. Should be good for anything except extreme cold. And since I'm not a farmer, even though I have a tractor, if it's extremely cold, my happy ass is going to be inside by the stove. Well, I take that back. I guess I got a blade. I might do some snow removal. Worry about that if it happens. And if you notice, I did not pre-fill the filter housing at all. Normally on a car with a spin-on filter, you would want to add as much oil as you can to the filter. But that's because, like I was mentioning, it's a full flow system. All your oil has to go through the filter. So while it's filling up the filter when you first start it after an oil change, the engine's not getting any oil. On this thing, since it's bypass, it'll still be getting oil. So not an issue. Well, look at that. There just happens to be 2 quarts in this jug. How lucky can I get? It smells like oil. Now we can fill these jugs up with the old stuff for recycling. As she's full of oil, breather's all cleaned up back on there. The breather on the other side is set up the same way, except that it doesn't pull out of the engine. It is built onto the end of that pipe. So I took it apart, cleaned it up. The only problem with this side was that the element was totally trashed. So we got a piece of Scotch-Brite pad wrapped around it with a zip tie. Should be good to go. We'll bolt that down and fire it up. pressure. And no leaks. I'm gonna call it good. Clean up. Go take the old girl for a cruise. Okay, it's set a little bit after running it a while ago. Let's check the dipstick. Ah, right on the full line. Perfect.